after a humble beginning, the NFL had a firm grip on pro football.
In all the 50s, which was a period of tremendous growth for the NFL, it was only them.
But in 1960, the new American Football League began. With a fast and wide-open approach to the game that fans loved, the AFL quickly caught on and ignited a heated competition for players.
For the first time in, I guess, 10 years, they have a choice of where they can go play.
All along, you had the competition for draft picks that was simply driving up the cost of doing business in the NFL, and this created some ill will between the two leagues, and it snowballed from there.
They were rating our quarterbacks, they were rating our stars, and we were going back and rating theirs. The bitterness was bad. It was growing by the day.
I did meet with Joe Foss, the commissioner of the new American Football League, in an attempt to develop an overall policy of cooperation and harmony.
And then along came Namath. He gets the $400,000 contract, $400 grand at that time, which is crazy.
Do you think they'd be down on you for commanding such a high price to sign?
No, I don't see any reason why they should. They want to win ball games, I want to win.
Because they had a lot of money, and they was throwing it around trying to get the best players.
Salaries escalated to where, by 1966, both leagues realized we have to find a way to come to a peaceful agreement, which became the merger.
Who does this panel think won the war?
I feel that's a league matter.
We decided the first thing we did to implement the merger was to do the Super Bowl on California.
It was really on Coach Lombardi's back to beat them and beat them badly and embarrass them if he could. I think the NFL would have liked to have seen a 60-0 score.
35-10, the Green Bay Packers, coached by Vince Lombardi, win the first Super Bowl game. The NFL can claim it is the best in the pro leagues.
I think the Kansas City team is a real top football team, and it doesn't compare with the National Football League teams. That's what you want me to say, I said it.
That ticked me off, ticked all of us off.
This is a habit.
It's become a semi-habit, Brittany. Congratulations for the second year in a row.
There was a feeling after the NFL had won those first two Super Bowls that maybe all the critics of the AFL were right, that they weren't as good.
And eventually that caught up with us in the form of Super Bowl III.
We wasn't even supposed to win the game, We 17 points underdog.
Namath on a handoff to Matt Snell. Snell at the 5, Snell at the 3, Snell touchdown!
The Jets' victory gave them credibility.
We're the world champs. That's the only important thing.
We didn't think there was any chance of that happening, and a lot of people on the NFL side were quite angry, including myself.
Oh, my God. When the Jets won that game, I never felt more elated. And I'm in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I wanted the recognition that we were a good league.
Those guys had it stuck in their craw. They had heard all the garbage for too long. I don't think it faded until probably well into the 70s.
It's pretty fantastic. It's a beautiful trophy, and it really is a satisfying conclusion to the 10 years of the American Football League.
The merger of the two leagues had very much to do with making the National League the favorite sport in America.
Who does this panel think won the war? Who won the war?
I feel that's a league matter.
I think it's beneficial to both, frankly, and very beneficial to the fans all around the country. I don't want to sound corny on that, but when you look at all aspects of this with the championship game, I think this is personally, I think it'll be one of the biggest sporting events of the year, every year in America.
Not only did Lamar Hunt accurately predict the success of the championship game, he gave it a name.
Somebody said, well, the World Championship game between the AFL and the NFL, which is obviously very, very wordy and not very catchy. And so as the meeting went on, my dad just threw out the term Super Bowl. It was probably a combination of the many bowl games, specifically Cotton Bowl games that he had attended growing up, and also the Super Bowls that we were playing with around the house.
Now there's a whole family of Super Balls. Super Ball Regular made from Zectron with 50,000 pounds of compressed energy. Super Small Ball with more bounce per Zectron ounce than any other ball.
So now this is a really interesting display because this is really the fruit of your dad's labor. This is the '66 championship game, the first Super Bowl, and it showed you how far this game came under his direction. What do you see when you look at this?
You know, his Chiefs are taking on the Green Bay Packers. It's at the LA Coliseum. The game didn't sell out, which is hard for us to imagine today with the scale of the Super Bowl. But I have to imagine, at least in the pregame, he was feeling a lot of satisfaction on having made it to that point. Given the battle that my father had been through, I think internally he probably wanted to win the game so badly to prove that the AFL, the Chiefs, were equal to the powerful NFL.
The Chiefs fell short in Super Bowl I, but 3 years later, they scored one for the AFL.
Running play coming to Garrett on a top touchdown.
The following year, there was no more AFL and NFL. It was one unified NFL, split into AFC and NFC. And the Super Bowl trophy was renamed for Vince Lombardi, who had died prior to the 1970 season. For Hunt and the Chiefs, 1969 was a fitting capper.
Can I get your reaction, Lamar Hunt, as you look back to those other years, some 10 years ago? There must be quite a reaction.
That's pretty fantastic. It's a beautiful trophy, and it really is a satisfying conclusion to the 10 years of the American Football League.
A strategy that made the AFL-NFL merger possible.
Well, this is the agreement of merger between the National Football League and the American Football League. When Congress acted to approve the merger of the two leagues, there was only a summary of the agreement. But there were a lot of additional understandings that had to be reflected among the owners, and that was done in an agreement that was dated December 1 of 1966. And it really is the most important document setting up the second 50 years of the NFL's history. Not everybody was happy with the agreement. That's an understatement. The two leagues had been fighting with each other from 1960 to 1966, and a lot of acrimony was built up during that time. One of the really difficult situations to resolve was reconfiguring the conferences.
Rozelle wanted the new NFL to have a championship game between two equal conferences. For that to happen, 3 of the 16 NFL teams needed to move to the American Football Conference, joining the 10 AFL franchises.
3 NFL teams were being asked to move into the lesser league. At least that's the way they viewed it. How that was going to get done was a very complicated issue.
His approach to leadership wasn't banging on a table, saying this is what we're going to do. He got people to understand the reasoning behind it, why this was good for the overall good of the league, and frankly made it their idea.
The stalemate became vitriolic, bitter. I was president of the league then, and I felt I had an obligation to break the stalemate. I said, guys, I have something to tell you. I'm going to move my franchise to the American Football Conference, providing 2 things. That Wellington Mara gives me his blessing, and that Art Rooney comes along with me.
Art Modell's Browns and Art Rooney's Steelers were joined by the Baltimore Colts in the AFC. Their concession helped finalize the merger and created some of the NFL's best rivalries.
Are we through now with all of the major moves, all of the plans, or is there still trouble on the horizon?
I think we're through the big ones, and I can't tell you how grateful I am.